Advice for somebody planning a first-time transmedia project?
Wow, advice on somebody wanting to do a transmedia project. One is you really need to flesh out what your objective is. Because something just to do it because it's a fad or something just because it's cool is the wrong reasons to do it. You have to realize it has to be built into the story's DNA. You also have to have a reason for why you're doing what you're doing. Anything that does not meet that objective is just marketing. So the big thing with transmedia is trying to tell a different facet of a story in a different way, generally on a different medium, I should say. And so it's the idea of wanting to do that and not necessarily, and also needing to do it to a point. Like with Billboard, that I wanted to create two different sides of the same story. One from the radio's perspective, one from the Billboard series perspective. Cause and effect. One thing does one thing, it affects the other, and vice versa. That's probably the easiest way to do it. When you're dealing a lot with, like I've got friends that produce in the transmedia space, and they do things very tech heavy. My big thing is to not create the least amount of friction as possible for your audience. Meaning, don't have them jump through hoops to be able to be entertained by what you're creating. Make sure that it's accessible. Just to wow your audience is not enough. I mean, AR became a big thing with Pokemon Now, and everybody then wanted to do something with AR in the transmedia space. But to me, it's like the only reason to do something like that is if it's authentic to your story. Because also too is people only get deeper into a story if they feel it's authentic and that they want to follow the story. So that's a big thing too, is like making sure that you have the proper amount of interest in what you're doing, that appeals to the widest enough audience as well. We're still like working on finding audience for Billboard, and it's growing, thank God. And producing transmedia is hard. It's also gonna cost a lot more money, it's gonna take a lot more time, straight up. Because it has to, because it's creating more media, and creating more things. You have to understand how you're going to market all these things as well, because I got to tell you, I've spent the last 10 years educating. That's one reason I think, too, it's taken me so long to get Billboard out there as well. It's like I still speak on colleges all the time, about transmedia and a matter of like what this stuff is. And I just don't like the word transmedia. I call it a cine experience. Because we create live events, it's a whole experience. It's not just media, it's an experience in my mind. And so it's not only it's for the creative and also the user, and everybody's going to have a different experience of how they attack the content.
What are some of the most prevalent questions you get when you go to the colleges?
Why do this? Why not just make a movie? And it's funny because my wife asked me that same question. Well, did you just stop doing this and just do a film? It's so much easier. And I can't, because that's not how I create. You know what I mean? Like when we did In Search Of, I go on college campuses, and Indiana University wouldn't even let us show In Search Of on their campus. And you have to realize Indiana University has a Kinsey Institute, which is like the Sex Education Institute in the United States. And In Search Of was even too provocative for them, and there's no sex in it. Doesn't make any bloody sense at all. So the reason I'm saying that is because then we did all these different things on college campuses with In Search Of, and I created experiences where the audience would watch the film and then they would share a story. And the funny thing is like the religious right have actually really have attached themselves to the film, which is very interesting, even though there's a lot of nudity in it. And I find that very fascinating. And so like even with In Search Of, there was that extra element of storytelling that we did, sponsored by a condom company, all these sorts of things. So we were actually, teaching about safe sex and things. But then also I've been doing this is built into how I create, with AKA I built out installations of the character's apartment and things, and then had his band perform live in places. And then with Billboard, it's just a matter of, by creating this crazy radio station enables me to do all kinds of fun stuff, and where people literally can go in and experience part of the story. in a different way. And it has to be authentic. That's the biggest thing. Is you just can't do it just to do it. It has to be really authentic. And even my next film is a love story. And you know, it still has transmedia elements to it because the lead female is a ballerina, and I wrote the ballet that's in the film that I actually want to mount aside from the actual film. So the ballet will actually be toured separate from the film. And then, you know, the lead character is a child advocate attorney that's also a writer, and he has a book of poetry that, you know, I've been writing and things too. So there's all these different sorts of things that we end up telling the story through. But it's how I create. I don't know any different. And so it's like literally been built in my DNA, and that's one reason why I create the way I do.